Great. Thanks for having us. So we're really excited for this discussion to talk about the journey that the Massachusetts Health Connector has gone through in partnership with Accenture, AWS, and Salesforce. And so we're here today to talk about their journey, the lessons learned in adopting services like Amazon Connect, as well as other services from AWS. And I'm joined today by some great panelists. So I have Elliot Gorman from the Massachusetts Health Connector, Rohan Ramsangi from Accenture, and Campbell Abbey from Accenture as well. And so just to give folks a little bit of a level set, the Massachusetts Health Connector was the first, and it's kind of the founding state-based marketplace in the United States. They insure about 280,000 people in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and they provide medical and dental insurance for small businesses as well as folks that are underinsured. They went through their transformation of their call center as well as adopting AWS services over the course of the last several years, and we're gonna dive deep into that. They also have the customers at the center of their mission and everything that they do. And one stat that stands out for me in regards to that is that they have the highest rate in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the highest rate of insured population of 97%. And the Health Connector is a key reason for that, for the mission and work that they do. And so where I'd love to get started is having a discussion with Elliot. So first off, thanks for joining the panel. So to help the audience, can you share an overview of the Health Connector beyond what I shared? And then can you talk a bit about the scale of customer operations that were impacted by some of the technology decisions you made?
Sure, and thanks for having me, by the way. So the Massachusetts Health Connector is responsible for both our group and ungroup markets. So we have a fairly large operation. And one of our sort of primary interfaces with our members is our contact center, which is now a virtual contact center that Accenture manages for us. Our contact center handles about 200,000 calls a month, peaking as high as 275,000 during our open enrollment period. And we run about an average of 450 call center agents, and that sometimes peaks up to 600 agents, again, during open enrollment. And then we also have a virtual IVR that handles member payments, and we handle several thousand member payments every month as well. So,
great. Can you share a bit with the audience the role that AWS and Accenture have played in your cloud journey as well as the call center modernization?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had actually started our cloud journey several years ago. We started migrating certain aspects of our infrastructure up to AWS. Started with enterprise data warehousing, our reporting and analytics platform, as well as a remote desktop environment, which actually came in handy when the pandemic hit us. And that sort of was great experience for us to learn the platforms, but it was really opportunistic in terms of when the opportunity to have a virtual call center came by. Now we were already familiar with those resources and those services, so it sort of was a nice match, and it melded in well with our vision and our architecture for technology. So.
Rohan, anything you'd like to add or anything you want to build off on?
I think our journey with the connector has been special to both AWS and Accenture. When we started, I think our journey initially started with the voice channel and the email channels, but gradually we've been working with the connector and adding more channels and capabilities and building, one brick at a time or one stone at a time, and so far I think it's been pretty good. We have been running Amazon Connect, and the voice channel runs on Amazon Connect, which works with a lot of other services such as Lex, SQS, Lambdas for integration. One thing which is unique about the setup which we have, it's truly omni-channel in the sense, if you walk in to a walk-in center or if you call the call center, you're going to get the same service, and the agents or the people who help you at the walk-in center would be using the same CRM, right? The same integration points are used for self-service channels such as voice, and I think that kind of adds up. In addition to that, we do run a lot of analytics capabilities. We use capabilities such as RDS. We also have a lot of security services running on AWS to make sure the solution is robust and secure. But that's an overview of what we are doing at the moment.
That's great, thank you. So Elliot had alluded to the pandemic, and probably through the pandemic has affected everybody's lives, but I would say to state organizations it's been pretty transformative. I know at Amazon we've seen state organizations during the pandemic take a step back, not only to respond to the fires that were in front of them, but also to think medium term and long term. I'd be curious at the Health Connector how the pandemic affected operations and how you kept the customers at the center of work that you did, and if there's any long-standing impact, positive, that you've seen from the changes you've made around the pandemic.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the biggest change to us or impact to us was when they implemented the American Rescue Plan, ARP, we really had to sort of be agile with our call center. We had extended eligibility rules, we had longer open enrollment periods, in a series of sort of business events that drove us to sort of adapt very quickly. And I think having a virtual call center was one of the biggest sort of enablers to us being able to adapt to those changes. So I think that the services of AWS being elastic and allowing us to scale up for longer periods of time was invaluable to our ability to deliver on that. So.
And Cam, I'm going to put you on the spot. Curious thoughts around what you've seen other customers do in the pandemic around using some of the services, perhaps, that Elliot just described.
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, I love the story of the Health Connector, first of all, because, I mean, they weren't unique, right? I mean, most government agencies had to expand very, very quickly with the onset of the pandemic to meet citizens' demands, right? I mean, it wasn't just the Health Connector. We have social services and unemployment services and all that. And just having the ability to scale up really, really quickly to meet those demands of those citizens through Amazon Connect and other AWS services has really enabled those organizations to meet that citizen's demand. And I think what we're starting to see now hopefully we're starting to come out of the pandemic, is that the realization that being able to scale up to meet these catastrophic issues that we face, not just a pandemic, but something else that might be just around the corner, being able to scale up really, really quickly and very, very fast and then back down again, I think is going to be something we continue to see. And we're starting to see these agencies now go on these big digital transformations to the cloud, and I think it's going to accelerate that cloud adoption even more, right?
Yeah, and if I can add to that, I think
please.
the ability to sort of now, as we start to look forward, to unwind some of the changes that we made initially, having a flexible contact center environment is invaluable, right? Because it took us months to implement these things. Now these things we can do in a simple deployment, which is measured in weeks. So it's a game changer in terms of being able to react and respond to the different drivers.
Rohan, any commentary on lasting changes as well that you've seen some organizations go through at Accenture around either the omni-channel experience or maybe different ways that they serve their members?
I think interesting. So let me take the industry view on this, and then I'll compare it to what we are seeing on the public health side. Mm-hmm. We did a survey in 2021, which is called the Accenture 2021 Health and Life Sciences Survey. We spoke to around 12,000 people across 14 countries. And while the set of people or group of people we spoke to was very diverse, what we saw, and which was common to everyone, was that everyone indicated they wanted a service which is easy, convenient, and accessible. Those were the three themes which came out. And that kind of experience demands you to be to enable an omni-channel ecosystem where digital channels could be used to interact with your consumers. And that is the same trend we see on the public health side with the state-based health insurance marketplaces as well. If we take a step back further and we go back to the times before COVID, our survey indicated that the progress towards digital healthcare initiatives had stalled, and then suddenly during the pandemic, it accelerated. And if you look at the public health side, what was done with vaccine management or contact tracing was truly omni-channel, and it was a success. So those are the trends which we are seeing. It stands to be common. And if we compare it or we look at the Health Connector, we see the consumer demanding something similar. They go online on the website to purchase an insurance during the open enrollment period, and then if they get stuck at a particular point in time because of a eligibility-related question or a payment-related question, they do want or they expect the organization to hold their hand. And how you can do it through digital channels is what I think we've been focusing with the connector as well.
Yeah, thank you. So Elliot, earlier you were talking a bit about kind of the journey that the Health Connector has been on from a technical standpoint. Can you talk specifically, if possible, about AWS, Salesforce, like from a technical standpoint, anything further you want to add about what you've deployed and anything further you think would help the audience?
So I think Rohan hit on some of the technical aspects, but I will say that one of the glaring, or two of the glaring differences was sort of a lack of focus on technology. I think we were able to really focus on functional delivery instead of the technology, which I'm a technologist, so I don't mind being in the forefront. However, I think being able to focus on business functionality and deliverables, that was the biggest difference that we really noticed, is that we weren't spending time talking about any infrastructure or provisioning or development per se. It was really focused on the functionality of it, which is, again, sort of a game changer in terms of focusing on the member experience. So.
Yeah. And I assume too, culturally, that was probably like different as well in terms of, instead of just like simply installing technology and having to worry, you were able to think probably differently.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a bit more about maybe the mindset change, or?
Yeah, it was a change. I think normally our projects are very business driven and with sort of technical support. In this case, but we always get very involved because there's usually a lot of technical aspects to it. In this case, we really just sort of guided the business through the process of implementing the services that they wanted and the functionality that they wanted. So it was a different approach, and we were there more to just sort of make sure that we understood the technology and that it made sense and that our requirements were all met. But it was really a different experience, I think, for our business to sort of be able to ask for something and then talk about how they wanted to see it behave, and then actually see it during testing and be able to demonstrate its availability. So,
Rohan, I'm curious from your perspective, being part of that project, any observations or anything further you want to expand on based on what you saw from an Accenture?
Yeah, so I think one thing which is very important with any customer engagement transformation or a contact center transformation is that it's generally not a re-platform or a re-host kind of a transformation. It is generally a reimagine. And what that essentially means is that you have to harness the power of cloud and the services which are available and rethink through your business processes and customer journey. And I think that's where the design thinking approach combined with looking at data and analytics from the past has really helped us. And it involves a lot of co-creation, a lot of imagination or visualization to kind of think through what the journey should be, and you will get it right sometimes. Sometimes you might not get it right. You need to innovate and reiterate and get there finally. But I think the services are available, and if you have the vision, you should be able to achieve it.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, I think sort of the way that we saw it from the technical aspect is that we were really leveraging this technology instead of implementing it and using it and focusing on that stuff. So I think it really changes the way that you look at the problem, and I think having a different perspective on it allows you to truly focus on problem solving as opposed to all of the work that goes into provisioning and development and whatnot.
Thank you. So our Amazon CEO, Andy Jassy, one of a saying that he has that I really like is that there's no compression algorithm for experience. And I'm sure, Accenture, you have tons of experience as a company helping customers move to the cloud, transform call centers, but more importantly, I think help organizations think differently about the customer experience. Is there any perspective you can share, Rohan and Cam, about maybe best practices that organizations are using in thinking of that, or any perspective you might want to share?
Yeah, so I think it's very well said. There is no compression algorithm when it comes to customer experience. I think the post-digital age is not going to slow down. Their business expectations are going to increase, and the consumer expectation is going to change, right? So I touched upon the design thinking aspect and the way you have to think about the journeys continuously and innovate and reiterate and keep doing it in a closed loop. Our Accenture's new brand as well says is basically let there be change, which indicates everyone is constantly changing, and we are getting to a state where we will continue to see a lot of innovation in this aspect. So with that in mind, I think, Tom, we've tried to do a couple of things. One is we try to ensure that the transformation objectives are generally met, if the vision is clear, as well as we've been putting a lot of effort into increasing the velocity at which we can introduce new features and capabilities to address that problem. Cam, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I would touch on as well, we talk a lot about the customer experience and all of that, but I think one of the things that certainly taught us, I think, is that taking the employee on that journey as well, right? So a lot of the benefits that we started to see wasn't just about cost takeout or improving customer experience, it was actually increasing employee engagement. Right, so when you think about, you start to implement some of those digital omni-channels like a chatbot and AI Lex, you reduce the call time, you reduce the wait time, so it frees up those employees to work on exciting initiatives. And I think you touched on it as well, Elliot, it's like the unplanned outages that used to occur have now sort of gone away because you've got this elastic, resilient platform you can now run on, and the outages just deteriorate significantly. So those employees, you increase that employee's engagement and satisfaction so they can start to work on more innovative and design thinking initiatives. Right, so we've certainly seen that. Yeah.
So Elliot, similar question to you that I asked them. No compression algorithm for experience. So obviously with the Health Connector, you've been through a multifaceted cloud journey, a contact center transformation and modernization to some degree. Can you share a bit for the audience your lessons learned, as well as organizationally, maybe some lessons learned that they may want to think about?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the big lessons that we learned were that we can leverage these services effectively, and I think that's a different mindset, as we talked about earlier, that we can leverage these services in the cloud effectively. In our case, we implemented this call center in, I think it was about 5 or 6 months, which is probably half the time that I've done prior ones.
Wow.
Yeah, and we opened, we did this right before open enrollment, so we rolled right into open enrollment. So that 5 to 6 months was on top of all the open enrollment prep that we do. So, I think it was really that, as I alluded to before, sort of leveraging that technology that allowed us to do that and focus on the functionality. And that was probably how we were able to compress that time down, is simply by sort of focusing on different work and not as much on the work that doesn't provide value back to the members. So some of the other things that we learned, I think, were just that we still need to do our end-to-end testing. I mean, we do that with all of our software releases, and we did that, and we found things that allowed us to sort of go live successfully. And I think also involving the business users in that business testing or that validation was also key too, to make sure that they knew what, it wasn't just a technical QA team, it was our business users that did that as well. So they were bought into the delivery of the services as well. So.
Was that unique, the involvement of the business users?
They typically get involved, not quite as deep. I think this was, if you look at sort of the pie of the SDLC here, usually there's a portion of it that's purely technical. In this case, the majority of it was implementation of business requirements. And I think as a result, there was just more emphasis on the business side. So they were the lion's share of the testing and validation, which again allowed them to do more of that, with the limited time.
I think one thing which I'll add is, the 5 to 6 month timeline we are talking about, it is a full end-to-end contact center with full self-service and capabilities which you would see any leading organization build over years. So I think that's been reimagined and done in that short. And one thing, I think, Tom, together Accenture and AWS has invested in these reusable assets and accelerators we have that help us increase the business involvement, because early on we can do demos and we can show how a particular capability like scheduled callback in a call center would, for example, work. So I think that's been really helpful, in my opinion, having the set of these reusable assets. And I think second thing you touched upon, which is, Elliot, the DevOps, it really is very important to bring the customer experience team, which owns the customer experience, the operations, which is running the day-to-day business operations, and finally, the technology in a regular cadence, following a structure to get to the right transformation outcomes you need. So that's kind of one of the success factors I look at. Cam, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I can't iterate enough how quickly, right? I mean, especially during the pandemic when procurement kind of got out of the way for a bit, how quickly you could spin up these services, right? I mean, yes, Elliot and team did a great job in 5 months, but I mean, we were seeing agencies spin up, say, a chatbot in a day, right? Call center redirection in a week or two, right? So, I mean, the technology is there to lower that barrier to get outcomes very, very quickly, and we would never have done that without the AWS platform and services.
Yeah, one of the other sort of differences in that 5 to 6 months that we talked about is that we actually constructed this arrangement slightly differently in that we own some of the intellectual property that Accenture built for us. So in addition to doing all of the work in the 5 or 6 months, we also did a different structure of the contracts and the relationship with all the different vendors. So we came out of that compressed timeline sort of further ahead than we normally do after maybe a 12-month effort. So really a different sort of mindset in terms of where we
Additional benefits for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think one thing which is also, I would say like the invisible hero of such migrations is the data migration capabilities you need, and cloud makes it, there are plenty of options available. If you want to do a physical transfer, you could use something like the Snow family. So I think those capabilities also really help you accelerate. Even though there's no compression algorithm to customer experience, you can accelerate your time to getting to that point.
Well, I want to thank everyone for participating in the panel. We did want to turn it over to the audience if there were any questions folks had for Elliot, Rohan, or Campbell. Just to be aware, Elliot, there's some questions he might be able to answer, some he might not be able to. So I'm giving him first right of refusal depending upon the,
From a legal
question. The question is asked. But is there anything the audience wants to hear more about, or any questions folks have? Oh, she's grabbing your microphone.
What's the next step in the evolution process within your contact center?
Good question. Interestingly, we're in the process of releasing chat into our contact center, which we've never had before. We're also implementing SMS and messaging, which will further sort of open up additional channels to communicate with our members. And these are just to put it in perspective, it sounds simple saying it, but these are things that in the past, when someone would say that, I would be like, not this year, like let's talk about it next year. So I think those are, they may seem almost small, but they really are monumental in that we're doing this now, right after implementing it. So those are some short-term things. And then we're also working with Accenture in terms of what else we might be able to leverage. Because I think one of the things that we do now when we talk to our business users is, we used to constrain them by technical limitations. Now we say, just start with what you want, and then we'll tell you if there's a limitation, which is, again, back to your question earlier.
Change, yeah.
It's a big cultural change, and they're sort of almost afraid to start asking, but it's sort of neat to see them ask for it, and us say, let's talk to our partners and see what it would take to do that, and they come back, and usually it could be done in a matter of weeks or months, given whatever else is going on. So. Yeah, so we'll see what the future does. I think we have to get used to the velocity here a little bit internally. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can add in what I'm saying other customers do in this space as well is like, and we touched on it here a little bit, once you're plugged into the AWS ecosystem, the proliferation of services that are now available to you around data, AI, ML, analytics, right? And especially when you've got access now to all those call recordings, all that call and all that data, and you can drive customer sentiment analysis and things like that, right? So, yeah.
If there aren't any other questions, thank you all so much for joining the discussion. Elliot will be behind, and Rohan and Cam if anyone has any questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.